Today's guest is an outdoor adventurist, paramedic and bikini competition competitor. She is currently working her way through the 7 Summits Challenge, which is climbing to the highest peak on each of the 7 continents, with only Antarctica and North America to go. As a paramedic in rural Victoria, her tasks range from delivering babies on the side of the highway to transporting patients up to 200 kilometres to the nearest emergency department. A current serving member in the Australian Army Reserves, she's competed in bikini competitions in the FMG Federation, proving her grit goes far beyond the mountains. We're diving into what it takes mentally, physically, to chase that level of challenge. Please welcome our guest, Alison Bowen.
Hello.
Welcome on. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. It's great to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
Beautiful. All right, Ali. So let's get back to the beginning. So obviously in the intro just now, we've mentioned like the 7 Summits Challenge, some of your competing, some of your career goals, some of your career achievements. What drives you to have that mentality, or what is that mentality that has sort of led you to do these awesome and crazy things that are so interesting?
I think it starts with just doing hard things. You know, once you get started and you do something hard and you realise that you can achieve that, and just then pushing yourself to do something even harder again. You know, the places you'll go, the people you'll meet, the person you'll become, like your mind expands and you just become such a different person once you start doing hard things, that it doesn't stop there. You know, at one stage, something that seems hard, once it's done, well, it's no longer hard. And so you can just set your sights on the next thing and the next thing. And so it just grows and snowballs from there. So it's never, I don't think there's ever a finished point, but you can just get so much out of life by constantly pushing and aiming to do something harder than what you've just done.
Yeah, and I guess your goal, what ended up happening was just finding a harder obstacle or a harder thing to do, really. Like, what was one of the first, just say for the summits, for example, what was like the first one?
Yeah, well, I got into hiking through Rovers, and I went with a few friends to New Zealand. We called it our quest for snow-capped mountains.
Oh, yeah.
And that was amazing. We had a couple of weeks of amazing hiking and seeing things we'd never seen before. And it was around that time I started reading some books about mountaineering and the 7 summits. And I thought, I don't know if I can do all of that, but I can at least start. And so, I went up to Kosciuszko for a weekend with a friend, and we hiked to the top of Mount Kosciuszko. And so that was the first one done. And from there, went to Kilimanjaro in Africa a few years later. And so that was the second one done. And it just was just a process of just aiming for the next one. You know, it wasn't a case of, I'll just wake up one day and go and do all 7 at once. It was a process of just, ticking one thing off, the next one, and aiming further and harder and higher, and just seeing how far I could go. And before I know it, I've done Mount Everest.
Yeah. Is there a progression that's like advised or recommended to do the summits? Like, start with this and you wouldn't do this one first, for example? Or is there like an actual progression or suggestion from something like that?
I would say there's not really a suggested path, but probably what a lot of people do is just start doing them in order of difficulty, or least difficult first, which is, if you're using Australia as one of the 7 continents, which most people do, it's Kosciuszko, that's quite easy. Then Kilimanjaro in Africa, and that's not easy by any stretch, but compared to some of the mountains, that is one of the easier ones. So people often do that one. Then Elbrus, which is in Russia. It's not one of the highest ones either, but conditions-wise, there's a lot more snow. There's can be a lot colder than some of the others. And so that's often the next one. Then people might head to South America to try Aconcagua, perhaps, as their next one. And that's what I did, but I had a couple of other mountains in between, some other experiences in Nepal, so to try and just get a bit more experience up. I didn't want to just do the 7 summits, so I had a lot of other hikes and a lot of other smaller mountains that got me some really valuable experience along the way.
Yeah. And to give some context, like for the listeners, even for myself, like the easier one, say, being Kosciuszko or Kilimanjaro, what's the kind of like distance or length and like time frame compared to say the hardest of say like Everest perhaps, or the hardest one you've done? What would be like a sort of comparison roughly, or time frame even?
Yeah, well, definitely Kosciuszko. You can hike up to the top of Kosciuszko in a day.
Oh, wow.
So you drive to Thredbo up in New South Wales, and then you can just hike up within a day. So it's super easy. You know, some people would regard Oceania as a continent, but technically it's a region rather than a continent. So if you want to talk about Oceania as a continent, there is a mountain in Indonesia called Carsten's Pyramid that can be regarded as one of the peaks. But a lot of people would say Australia is the continent. It's a continuous landmass, which is a continent rather than a region. So yeah, that makes Australia one of the continents, and thus Kosciuszko is probably the easiest. And then heading all the way up to, obviously, Mount Everest is the highest. And it's the longest one I've done so far. So that was about 8 weeks away from home and about 7 weeks on the mountain, including the trek in and time spent at base camp and the climb from there. So, and then the two remaining, Denali, which is in North America, in Alaska, that's regarded by a lot of people who've done both, Everest and Denali. That can be equally as hard, if not harder, just because the conditions are so much more colder and longer, and it's a very different climb altogether compared to Everest. So,
and Everest is like what, more dry and windy or something, I'm guessing, compared to if it's colder in Denali.
Yeah, well, it can be exceptionally cold on Everest.
Obviously, with the snow and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very different setup in that you obviously trek into a base camp, and there's a lot of facilities that are set up for you at base camp. Whereas on Denali, you're not setting up that way. You're sort of continuously moving all yourself and all of your gear to the next stage, and you don't have porters and stuff that are setting up a camp for you and having things and basing yourself from a base camp and moving up and returning to that base camp. So it's quite a different climb entirely.
Yeah, wow. And like, to give some context again for the listener, like what kind of time span are you looking at from when your very first climb or summit to like the most recent one? How many years is that? Like, how long?
Yeah, so I did Kosciuszko first in 2007. And my fifth of the 7, which is Mount Everest, that was done last year in 2024. So that's 17 years between them. I decided it was going to be a bit of a passive project. I wasn't in a position to just, take a year off work and financially commit everything all at once. And so I just thought I'll just start chipping away at it slowly and gradually and just see how far I can go and hopefully get all of them done. So
it's actually like it's a very good point you make though. It's like doing it passively and thinking of it like on such a long time horizon, because a lot of goals in general with people, it's like they must complete it within like 6 months, or that it's like 1 year only. If I can't get it done, that's it, I've failed. But like obviously to the extent of how big the climbs are anyway, it requires a long time span, but also that mentality of like over a long time span and just like doing it passively, but you'll still get there, but having like just extending it really is actually a really smart way of going about with any sort of, I think, hard goal. It's like just being it for the long run, not being in a rush, and then you'll probably get there as long as you just don't sort of lose interest or, just completely have enough of it.
Yeah, and I think especially at the moment on, social media, you do see a lot of people that are in a position to just go for it all at once, or they've got sponsorships or something like that. And I think it's easy to sort of go, well, gosh, if I can't do all of it, at once to that standard, then why bother trying? Or, I can't do it the way that person's doing it. But
it's like the glamorous way almost.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like glorified and it's done quickly or with the most funds and the backing and the funding and sort of stuff.
Or speed of sense, or something that's going to be a really marketable way of sort of putting it out there. And obviously when I started it way back in the 2007 or before then, when I first sort of thought, oh, that's something I'll go for, social media was barely even a thing back then, so it wasn't something that you were thinking about that you were going to utilise.
Chuck on your Instagram story, just you up in Everest.
Yeah, I'm not sure selfies were even invented back then. So
That wasn't even a thing. You had to hold like a digital camera. Digital camera in a mirror. That was a selfie back then.
That's it. So just chipping away at it slowly, playing the long game.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for anyone listening, I think, is the long game often wins, and even for yourself with like competing. Competing is a long thing.
Sure is.
With any sort of fitness competition or bikini and that sort of stuff, it's not like a little 4 or 6 week cut. It's 6 months or longer, and there's a build phase or a maintenance phase, and then a cut goes for quite a long time. And everyone's different, obviously, but there is a time frame that's usually pretty lengthy in there to get to the condition you want to get to.
Absolutely.
Are there any, obviously, like ones, like climbing Everest is extremely dangerous. It's taxing. It's all, it's like the pinnacle of everything in regards to complexity and how hard it is. But were there any crossovers with that and competing in, say, the bikini comps, or like from like a challenge standpoint, or any lessons that were like similar or carried over to either one?
I think there was a lot of paying attention to the smaller details, like the smaller things that you learn along the way. Probably with Everest, you think, you have to be really fit, and you do have to be really fit. That's obviously going to help you really well. But same with doing a bikini competition, it's not just the weights that you're pushing in the gym, it's all of the, making sure you're sleeping well, making sure you're hydrating well, getting your steps in. It's all of the small things, the not as obvious things, and learning about those, which you'll do sort of through repetition, and the more you do it, the more you realise how important all of the other things are. And each time you sort of go to the gym, or each time you do a bikini prep, or each time you go to the mountains, you just learn more about how important it is to keep all of those things going. I think of it as like spokes on a bicycle wheel. Each individual spoke is not carrying the weight of the whole wheel, and maybe if one becomes a little bit wobbly or something, it's not going to bring everything undone. But if all of your spokes start going, you can't just have one strong and steady spoke. They've all got to be there, and it's making sure everything is in check. And keeping everything going. That's what you learn through doing the process multiple times. With the mountains, like I summited Kilimanjaro on my first attempt, and summited Elbrus on my first attempt. And then when you get to a mountain, so I didn't summit Aconcagua on my first attempt, and that felt like a big blow at the time, but it was a really good lesson in understanding the different spokes and how over a few days, if one or two of them start to go, like if your sleep isn't good for a few days, then that will catch up with you. So you've got to attention those things earlier on. And it's all those sorts of lessons that create success on Everest, or if you step on stage a subsequent time, your attempts get better and better, because you just learn so much about not just how much weight you can push in the gym, but how much better the process is going to be if you get your nutrition dialed in earlier, if you make sure you're sleeping well, all those sorts of things. So repeated processes and paying attention to the smaller details.
And you really can't like beat just wisdom and doing it more and more and more times. Like, it's just that experience is invaluable to help you prep better next time and have everything lined up properly and better. I think, and like in a lot of different pursuits of anything, bodybuilding or climbing, it's like once they're, you can't beat like extra wisdom and value in doing it, just like doing it over and over again. When you said about the climb that you had to repeat, what was the reasons for that?
So heading to Aconcagua the first time. So Aconcagua is the highest peak in South America. It's in the Andes, just on the Argentinian side. And so you go over there, and you've had a couple of wins up your sleeve, like Kilimanjaro and Elbrus, and you're feeling pretty good. You think this is the next sort of one in progression in terms of height and difficulty. And I think a lot of people have the experience of, really getting kicked around on it. It's actually like a lot harder. The altitude is a lot higher. You really feel the difference. The wind there is really something different compared to the other mountains.
As like intensity or like just the strength of it?
Yeah, the strength, the constant nature of the wind. So it's really quite a different beast. And so on our summit day, well, I'll go back a bit before that. We had pretty wild weather on the way in, especially from an Aussie that's not used to, living in the mountains and the snow and the cold all the time. That really took a bit of wind out of my sails. Where my tent was set up at the base camp, we just had some roaring winds at night time. I felt like my tent was going to fly away. So, the tent's just like all night long. And that, I think, just took a lot of wind out of my sails, more than I realised at the time. And so when we left for the summit push, which is a multi-day process, I was just feeling gassed, and I just wasn't travelling as fast as some of the other members of our team. We had about 5 people that were really strong climbers, and I just wasn't moving at the pace that they were. And so the guides made a decision to turn around a few people. So we're about halfway into the summit day. There's a sort of a refuge point, and they made the call to turn me and a few other people around. And I was pretty gutted at the time because I wasn't feeling ill. I just wasn't moving fast enough. And the guides make that call for safety reasons and for ratios and safety and so forth. But off the back of a couple of wins, it's a bit of a blow to be turned around, definitely. Especially when you're not feeling terrible. So coming back from that one, you feel pretty deflated, and you're like,
you would,
damn,
definitely.
Like that's knocks the wind out of your sails and sort of cuts you down a bit. And so it wasn't until about 6-7 months later, I had a friend, and she was going back. She'd also tried that season and was unsuccessful, so she was going back the following season. And I said, well, shit, it'd be great to go, with someone that It's always nice going with a friend. So I jumped on that trip as well. And, the walk-in, we had a fantastic group of climbers. It was so good. We still all keep in contact on a WhatsApp group. We're from all over the world. And just heading into summit day, you sort of have those feelings of like, oh gosh, I hope this goes well. I hope, I'm moving well and I'm not slow. And then, so we got to the same point again, this halfway point it's called Plaza Independencia. And I remember thinking, like, there was once again a group of really fast climbers. And I thought, I'm not as fast as them, but I'm not prepared to turn back. And a few of us said to one of the guys, like, what's the sort of turnaround time? What's the cutoff? Are we moving fast enough to make it? And then he was a bit abrupt, and he said, well, this is a call for you to make, not me. And so I thought, well, if no one's turning me around, I'm going for it. Even if I don't make it, I'm getting further than I got last time. I'm going to make an improvement. And so, just headed off, sort of trying to chase down the fast people, and caught up with them at the cave, which is not too far below the summit. And I almost gassed myself trying to catch up with the group by then. And I said to the lead guy, I said, I don't know if I can make it from here. And he's like, what are you talking about? The summit's right there. You see those people coming off the top? They're coming off the summit. I thought it was a false summit, where you think you can see the top and there's a bit more beyond that. But no, that was a summit. And I said, all right, get out, like, hold my beer. Let's go. So, we just headed off from there and got to the summit. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like I nearly turned myself around at the cave. Like I almost missed out on this.
You were so close.
Yeah, I was so close. And gosh, it just made me realise you have to always reach a bit further than what you think you can go for. Like, always stretch a bit further, because you'll probably surprise yourself.
Yeah, we see it in personal training. Obviously, like you're a client with us as well, but we see it with clients all the time if they're newer to training, and most people always tap out earlier with their exercises and their sets, because they're just like, they don't know how much they've got to push or how much more they can give. And they usually would tap out earlier, and we help give that push as a coach, or help them get a little bit step further as well. To push more, and they always can, and they end up being fine, and they progress, and then next week they come back in and do more again, and it's all good. But
and I remember thinking on the way down from the summit of Aconcagua, just going like, wow, and I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm still feeling good. And we've just done it. And I thought I'd be like gassed to the nth degree, and I'm not. So this is amazing.
So that first time when you weren't able to push through it, was that just more so from having like poor recovery, not great sleep, just being gassed to start with, and that's why it was so much harder to get, and then you had to turn around from that refuge point, or like what's?
I think a couple of things. Like I definitely had, you know, a few nights of poor sleep, which didn't help me at all. But then also having a bit of, you know, well, if someone else is telling me that, you know, it's better for you to turn around now, you know, they're guides and they've got experience in the industry and they know a lot. And so I respect their opinion and stuff, but also you have to have, I suppose, a strength and a knowing within yourself, and that builds up over time and experience to go, no, hang on, I've got more in the tank, like this isn't it. And yeah, so it's a bit of a balance between listening to the people that have the experience, but then also developing that experience within yourself to know when to push and when to have patience.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big takeaway from that first one, but then also from the second attempt on Aconcagua, which was successful, just coming back down and going, wow, like, yeah, that was hard, but I'm still here and I've still got juice in the tank. Yeah.
When's the next one now?
If the guide on the second attempt had let me turn around at the cave, like I would have been happy because I got further than last time, but you know, I would have sold myself short.
And probably so defeated though, like still happier because you got further, but probably like, wow, would you have tried a third time?
I don't know.
Yeah, and then
I mean, eventually I would have.
Again, like for the next summit, maybe not done the next one.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, sometimes it really pays to just stretch yourself a bit further than what you think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's a quote by David Goggins. You've probably heard of David Goggins.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, definitely.
I read all his
Who's
books.
got to carry the boats?
But he says that most people, when they're ready to quit, when they think they're at 100%, they're only at 40%. And so, yeah, most people turn around at 40% thinking they're at 100%. And that's definitely a mindset that I took with me to Everest.
Yeah. Any of our clients are listening to that? Alison has described it best because we're always trying to push our clients about you've got so much more left in the tank and you're only just scratching the surface. So definitely it's a good point to make is you're often just not there. And David Goggins said it himself, so I believe that as well, for sure. Before we go into like the Everest part, that was one of our main parts for today, but what's like one of the most dangerous parts you've come into across any of the summits you've done? Like what was a dangerous time or maybe incredibly unhealthy where your health was jeopardised or a dangerous moment like that you were very fearful or anything like that? Like what was one of the hardest parts?
There's been a few times which I suppose I wasn't necessarily jeopardised myself, but a few close calls with people around us. You know, you're on that Aconcagua attempt, there was a death on that summit day. She wasn't from our party, but sometimes the small, simple errors can have catastrophic consequences, especially when you're so isolated, you're so far from help. You can't just call for help and have an ambulance arrive. You know, sort of that, the irony of my job is to go to people when they're in a time of need. But when it's yourself and, you know, just that realisation that you're so far from help, it's quite stark. Actually, on my Everest summit day, we'd been at the summit for about half an hour and were on our way back down, and I actually passed out about 30 minutes down from the summit. We were moving really fast. My guide and I were moving really fast, and I remember thinking, like, why are we pushing so fast to try and get past everyone so quickly on the way down? And my crampons had slipped a couple of times on some rocks, just trying to get past everyone with so much haste. And I just needed to catch my breath, and so I clipped into an anchor point. And then the next thing I remembered hearing was someone saying, a female voice saying, well, do you want me to talk to her? Maybe I can help. And then I heard a male voice saying, yeah, but what are you going to do anyway? Now, when you've been unconscious, they say that the first sense that you start to regain is your sense of hearing. And so as I was hearing this, I realised that they were talking about me and that I was flat on my back. And I started to realise that I think I've fainted, and I don't know why. And so then I could hear my guide, Mingma, his voice had this sort of sense of urgency, and I could hear him talking on the radio to our other lead guide, and he was trying to sort of rustle me and like wake me up, and I was trying to then just say something to him just to let him know that like I can hear you, I know you're saying something. And he was trying to take my mask off and give me a drink, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, I'm coming around. And so I realised I'd fainted, but it was this really strange sense of calm, like super calm. It was so, the sun was out that day, just lying on the track, just exhausted, but thinking, no one's coming for me here. Like there is no help coming. I can either lay here, which is so tempting right now, just because you're at the end of your exhaustion, or I can get up. But if I lay here, like that's it. Like there's no one coming to get me. And so you've just got to get up. And so it was a slow process of getting up, and I could tell that I'd fainted. I know that feeling before I've fainted, when I get needles and stuff. Yep. But got up and started moving and had some lollies and just kept going. But that was probably, I suppose, the most dangerous point for me. It didn't feel dangerous at the time, I think because I knew what was going on, and I knew that I'd be okay. Yeah, but the irony of being the one that's always going to help people, and then at that moment where I was probably in my most perilous position, there's no one coming for me.
No, yeah.
So, yeah. But I'm still here to tell the tale. So. Yeah,
that's like a crazy perspective of that. Like, yeah, usually you're helping, but then in that moment, no one was coming for you though.
No.
It wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So looking into Everest, and that was like, so obviously like the dangerous part, or the part where someone passed away on the other hike. So for Everest, I remember we were in a session once and you said that it was like the hardest one by far.
Yeah.
Straight up, why was it so hard?
You expect that Everest is going to be the hardest physical thing that you've ever done, and it definitely was, but also, mentally and emotionally it was really hard as well. You're not climbing every single day for 7 weeks, but you are on the mountain. Even once you're at base camp, so it takes about 9 days to get into base camp or thereabouts. You're at an elevation where, things don't grow anymore. It's just rock and ice, and not a whole lot of oxygen. And so, even just every day is just not quite right. Even once you've acclimatised, it just doesn't feel right. And so it's quite taxing. But even once you're moving up from there, it gets harder and harder. And then you come down to base camp to acclimatise and recover from, the rotations. And just sitting at base camp, just the process of being there, there's so much going through your mind. You can't help but think of back home. Life still goes on. You've still got the same thoughts and stuff, so you're not always constantly moving. And just sitting in that sort of uncomfortableness is a lot harder than what you think it's going to be. Once we'd done all of our rotations and we'd come back to base camp to recover and then get ready for the summit push, it was then just a matter of waiting for the right weather window. And so it was over a week that we're sitting and waiting at base camp. And every day you go off and you might do a little side hike somewhere just to keep the legs moving and to try and acclimatise even more. But for the majority of that time, it's just sitting in this thought of like what am I doing? Like I have, family, home that love me. I'm going off to do this really dangerous thing. Is it worth it? I have a great life back at home.
Worst case
You just,
scenario.
you
like,
just
could
really...
could be the last time here, like for me, it's so dangerous.
Yep. And so just sitting in that sort of uncomfortableness is really difficult. And I did hear that from some of the other operators on the mountain during that week of waiting, because a lot of teams were ready to go and we're all just waiting for this weather window that was on the horizon, that a lot of people did just choose to pack up and leave the mountain. And I totally understand it.
Head back down.
Yeah, and abandon their whole climb. I think perhaps people with children.
Because the wait was just too long for the push.
Yeah, but also you're just sitting in that space of like questioning, is this worth it? Is this really worth gambling everything for an attempt? It's the whole perspective and just sitting with that uncomfortable feeling. I think when everything's going and moving and things have traction, it's really easy to stay on the bandwagon. But when everything's stopped and you just have to sit and be patient, and again for a whole another day and again for a whole another day, that can be really difficult. And so that was the emotionally hard part.
And I guess like the moving part's the fun part.
Yeah.
That's why you're there. Like you want to hike it, you want to climb it and get going. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
But when that's not happening, it's like, this is not fun anymore. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
It's like, incredibly hard.
And the physical stuff was really hard as well.
Yeah.
Some of the longest, hardest, most difficult days of my life. Yeah, just back to back to back on the summit push.
Where do you feel it most, like just in the legs or overall? Like obviously the breathing's harder as well, lack of oxygen, but is it just like your legs just feel smashed the whole time? Is your whole body aching? Like what do you feel?
No, it's definitely each section of the summit push was really different.
Oh yeah.
So, the move from base camp up to Camp 1 through the ice fall, that's really dangerous. So it's when the Khumbu Glacier sort of narrows and goes down this really steep part. So all of the glacier breaks off into bits of ice.
Yep.
That's called the Khumbu Ice Fall. And that can change daily.
Okay.
But to move up through that, you generally start at about 2 a.m, which is when it's most frozen overnight.
Oh, yep.
And you try and get up before the sun hits it and starts melting it and making it less stable again. And so there's the bit of the panic and the fear to make sure you get up that as quickly as you can. And, and there's certain sections where you can't stop or you really shouldn't stop because it's really dangerous. Bits can be falling. And then there's other areas where it is a bit more okay to stop and take a break if you need to. But the fear of trying to get up that in time and not have anything go wrong whilst you're in it. And so there's that. And then from Camp 1 to Camp 2, you're just on the Western Khum, which is a glacier that's super exposed. You've got, ice walls beside you. And when you're there in the sunshine, you've got the sun coming down from overhead, you've got the sun reflecting off the ice walls, and then the sun reflecting from the glacier underneath you. So you're just being cooked. And it's not thermally hot. So, but you feel like you're being microwaved, and you've just got this going on for hours until you get to Camp 2. And that was just so distressing. It felt like when you're in a dream and you're moving and you're not getting anywhere. So
like a weird sort of feeling.
Yeah. And that was quite distressing. Feeling like you're moving and you're not getting anywhere, and you're like, how am I finding this so hard? We've still got several huge days ahead of us, and I feel like I'm not even moving on this section. Yeah. So finally, when you get into Camp 2, you're like, I can't believe that was as difficult as it was. And it's relatively flat compared to some of the other days. But yeah, that was really, it was a strange sort of feeling because it wasn't hot, like you couldn't fry an egg, but yeah, it's hard to describe.
It felt warm.
Yeah, and then on other days, once you get onto the Lhotse face, it's so steep, and just sort of seeing if I came off the line here, you would slide for days and probably never be found again. So there's that sort of emotional fear of like, whew, I can actually see this,
this is dangerous.
See the danger. It's not,
And you're always hooked on to like the line all the time?
Yeah. So there's fixed lines
Yep.
at that point, and you're hooked on. But if something were to happen, if you were to unclip for some reason and lose your balance, you'd slide forever. And that's a strange reality. Often a lot of other times, you might fall or slip a little way, but you wouldn't go forever.
No.
So, different.
One big slide that goes for 2 days long and never found again.
Yeah, that's right.
Is the reality of it.
And then after that, the climb from Camp 3 to Camp 4, I felt like the nature changed. Beneath that, people can be doing rotations, so going up, doing some acclimatisation, going back down again. But once from Camp 3 to Camp 4, like no one's doing rotations at that point. Everyone's playing for keeps.
Yeah.
And so most people, pretty much everyone had their oxygen masks on by that point, which makes it a lot harder to communicate.
Yep.
So, it was a lot of more hand gestures or just sort of implying, hoping that you knew what people were wanting, and everyone's really gunning to get to the next camp. And so it just felt like there was a lot of tension on the line, just in terms of emotions, and everyone like, come on, move. Like you can't really, it's a lot more harder to say step around someone at that point. So just a lot of nerves and vibes that were, just you got to keep moving. So that was a 12-hour stretch, and there wasn't a break for toilets or food or drink or anything. It's just you just got to keep going. So there was a lot of fear, I think, that day. That was probably one of the scariest days.
And you said earlier, like it's a hard one because it's physically hard, but also mentally and emotionally. And you question, like, why am I even doing this? Why am I even here on the quieter days when you're sort of sitting around? Did it make you, when you got back, did it make you appreciate things more or differently? Did you see life differently when you got back? Was it just slotting back into normal life again, or did you have a different perspective?
Definitely had a different perspective, and so on the summit day, there was a lot of you don't have a whole lot going through your mind. But for me, I just had like a couple of different quotes going through my mind. And one of them was, doubt kills more dreams than failure does. And the other one was, most people quit at 40%. And so I was just saying to myself, well, if I'm not ready to quit, I'm not even at 40% yet. So keep going. Take another step. I'm not even at 40% yet. So take another step. Like I've still got, even when I'm ready to quit, I'm only at 40%. So keep going. And I just kept repeating those phrases to myself, doubt kills more dreams than failure does. Take another step. And then you get to the top and you're like, I thought going into it that would be the hardest thing that I would ever do, hang my head up, that's it. But then you get back down and you realise that wasn't even my 40%. Holy shit.
What's next?
You can do so much more. You can do so much more than you thought you could. I thought that would be my 100%, and it turns out it's not even my 40%. So,
and it's important to push yourself as well, because and probably had a similar feeling with competing. I know when I competed back in the day when I was younger, but that was a grueling prep for me, like a 6-month prep. Dropped 24 kilos in 26 weeks, whatever it was, so a lot of weight. But after the prep, it's like I can do hard shit now. I can do hard things, because that was grueling. That amount of weight in that time frame was very hard to do, and I had to do so much cardio and drop calories so low and whatever it was. But once you've done it, you're like, wow, I can do hard shit, and then you're like, what's next for me? And it makes you more resilient, and it's like you just build these layers of resilience on top of you, and just thicker skin. So and then anything that you go through now throughout your life, you've been through some pretty hard shit physically and mentally, you're pretty well versed in it, that you're ready to tackle it on. So if someone's watching and I guess hard things scare you, or you sort of have fear around, it's just
lean into it.
Go for it and lean in, and
that's it,
and give it a crack, because what's the worst that could happen? You're on Everest, so the worst thing that can happen is pretty severe.
Yeah.
and it's fatal. So that's a pretty, big risk to take. So most things that we go through that we're fearful of or don't want to lean into, it's like pretty minor. It's like pretty small things when you think about, everyday life.
Yeah.
Compared to being on the side of Everest and the conditions and what you're going through is, intense.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, it was absolutely the hardest thing I'd ever done to that point. They were the biggest, scariest, toughest days of my life. But I got through it and I finished it and it didn't defeat me. And so just leaning into really hard things, expands your mind.
Yeah.
Makes you a bigger, better person.
Yeah.
And just makes you realise how much more you're capable of.
Yeah. It's awesome. The preparation for it, like what kind of training did you have to do for Everest? Like, is there a huge cardio component? Is there a lot of like periodising training to get harder and harder leading up to it? Do you have a back off period? Like what was involved in that?
Yeah, I had done, so a lot of my other mountains, I'd just done my own training, which I thought the best way to train for it was just like go hard, smash yourself.
Yeah.
And in the lead up to Everest, I decided to get a coach because with my bikini competition preps, I had a coach and I realised just how valuable it was to have someone that actually knew the craft. So heading for Everest, I got in touch with a mountain coaching company and got a program from them, and it was periodised and really structured. And so it didn't feel intuitive initially because it felt like, this isn't enough. Surely this isn't enough. But it was really tailored, just at a gradual, sensible build-up rather than just smashing your body all at once. And so I learnt all about like zone training and that was fantastic. I got a Garmin watch. I started paying attention to heart rates and zones and all of those things, which I'd never done before. And, I was working on that for about 8 months out. And so there was a lot towards the end. It was almost full-time training, and so a lot of long days carrying packs. So it wasn't just an all-out smash fest, which is what I thought was the better way to train. But it turns out it's not. Who knew?
A lot of endurance people or like runners, if they're newer to it, I've spoken to a lot of people as clients and ex-clients and stuff, and it's like they're doing running for the first time and they like smash themselves and they get a sore ankle or a sore foot or they do a tendon or something. It's like, usually going hard at the start is not the idea to do it. It's like just the wrong way around.
Yep, who knew?
So acclimatising in 8-month period, then towards the end it sort of steps up a little bit, does it? Right towards this?
It was a gradual step up. So every week or so the training sort of increased by, either an hour to a couple of hours, towards the end, the last few weeks. It was around the 25 to 35 hours a week, and thankfully had some time off work before I went, so I could slot that in really well. But that definitely helped, I think, just be in the best sort of physical shape. And I knew by that stage, especially from the competition preps I'd done as well, that really paying attention to your sleep, your recovery, your hydration, that all of those things are so important. And, that I think was some really valuable takeaways, but take-ins in the lead up to Everest. And by that stage, I knew a lot more about nutrition. So from the bodybuilding side of things, just learning more, not just about calories, but understanding, proteins, fats, carbs, and, just making sure that I was fueling not just for the workout, but fueling for recovery as well. That sort of opened a whole new world of just understanding nutrition. I think there's, I've had the experience in Nepal of you're on a really remote trek somewhere and you end up on the white diet. It's called the white diet because you just end up eating rice, chapatis, porridge, cauliflower, like everything you're eating is white. And after a couple of weeks...
Chapatis? What are they?
It's like a local flatbread. And by themselves, they're not bad foods, but you just sort of realise the lack of some other things that, you're not getting a range of fresh vegetables and you're not getting a range of proteins and nutrients. And you really start to feel it, added to the fact that you're often in perhaps at altitudes, so you don't have great optimal oxygen and stuff. So it's this combination of feeling just suboptimal all the time. And so once I had that understanding of, calories and what makes up calories, that sort of made me reflect on previous climbs where you've felt so crappy in the end. You go, oh, it's because, I barely had any protein or any, fresh nutrients and stuff for quite a period of time. And so just sort of being aware of that going into Everest and thinking, okay, cool, like they've got really good cooks at their base camp and stuff, but making sure we had extra amounts of protein or extra amounts of different types of fats and so forth, just to make sure that if we felt we weren't quite getting what we needed from what was supplied, then we had some extras ourselves. So,
and at the base camp, do they like prep it all, then bring it up with them, or how does it work? Like obviously you can't carry too much probably either. Yeah,
so a lot of
dehydrated or something, or
a lot of so if you go with an operator, whichever operator you go with, they will, about 1 or 2 months before you arrive, they'll have a team of people going and setting up their base camp, and they'll pretty much have a kitchen, a really pretty amazing kitchen set up, and so they get a lot of their food sort of brought in earlier. So they do amazingly. The food we had was so good. But still, I suppose whatever diet that you're used to having at home, you have preferences as to what you eat and digest a bit better, and how certain foods make you feel. So before we left, we did a shop in Kathmandu and just made sure we had a few other things to, I suppose, supplement what we knew was going to make us feel good. So we took a bit of extra food up with us, and glad we did. We didn't necessarily eat all of it, but it was good to know that we had those options there in case, we needed it.
Was anyone's like stomachs upset from the change in food? Like when you said, obviously you used the stuff back from home, having food in Nepal and cooked differently, and bacterias and washing and water and whatnot, it's all different to, say Melbourne or Australian or Western countries.
Thankfully, like no one in my group had any issues like that, but definitely on previous climbs, we've had some issues with those sorts of things. And I know that the medical tent at base camp, which anyone can use, they see a lot of cases of gastritis and stuff, and things like that can bring a whole climb unstuck. If you get a bad bout of something, it can almost be trip ending. You really want to pay attention to all of that stuff from the beginning. And I know that the company that we went with pay particular attention to those sorts of things. They don't want to see their climbers go home for those sorts of reasons. I think they've really put a lot of measures in place over the years to keep their climbers as healthy as possible.
Safe,
So,
and the guides that go up there, the name I think is like a Sherpa or something. Is it? So the Sherpas are the guides? So Sherpa is actually like a ethnic group in Nepal. And it's one that's in the mountains. I hope I'm getting this right. But it's an ethnic mountain Himalayan group, and I think there's several others like that. But amongst a lot of trekkers and climbers, the Sherpas, the term has been used a bit more broadly to describe the mountain climbing guides. So they might not necessarily be a Sherpa, but they might be called a Sherpa. So I hope I haven't stuffed that up. I haven't offended anyone, but I think that's how it's gone. I'm the same. I'm honestly asking from a place of just curiosity, and I've seen a lot of TikToks and YouTube videos or a few things here and there where the person who climbed Everest or had a crack at Everest talked about their Sherpa. So whether it was part of the ethnic group or not. So whether it's just a guide or it's from that group, but
so I would call my guide Mingma a Sherpa guide. But I don't know if he's actually from that, part of that ethnic group.
Sure. And would they do like multiple trips every year, or like obviously it's very taxing, but they're probably acclimatised to that environment in a way, being in that country. But do they do like multiple trips all the time? Is it just like flat out up and down? Like what's sort of there, do you know?
Well, so a lot of the guides can work on multiple mountains. So if they're a high altitude guide, it's not just Everest that they would guide on. There's loads of other mountains. So, but once they go to Everest, they're sort of gone. They're away from their home for the whole duration, which is going to be at least 7 weeks. And if they've arrived earlier to set up the base camp and so forth, they could be there for even longer. So it's definitely, I suppose, a lifestyle job for them. But then when they're back, they might be back for a period of time before they go off and work on another mountain doing the same sort of thing. So, they could do multiple mountains, multiple high altitude things. I know my guide, it was his ninth summit on Everest when I was on the top with him. Yeah, so...
Like a normal day for him.
Yeah, that's right.
Just climbing Everest.
Yeah, just incredibly strong people. It's amazing. So
have to be. Wow. And what about costs? I know like that was something I was like really interested in, was like the cost, because I've heard it can be quite expensive to go to Everest, and it's such a big thing to do.
Yeah.
What kind of like costs are involved, and how does that sort of work? Like you said, you used like a group, was it? What was the name? Sorry.
Yeah, so I went with a company called Imagine Nepal.
Yep.
It's a it's a Nepalese company.
Yep.
And we, between the three of us, so I went with a couple of friends that I'd met on another mountain a few years earlier. And between us, we had a few other contacts in Nepal. And so we just asked around. We inquired with a number of different companies. There was a few like Western companies. And there was a few local like Nepalese companies that we inquired with. And we just had this one recommended to us. And it was important. We wanted to go with a local company. This one were just really responsive. They sort of ticked a lot of the boxes that we were looking for. And so we quite happily signed up with them. But each company can offer different things in terms of not just oxygen and sleeping arrangements and so forth, but the ratio of guides, the services in terms of flying in or flying out, all that sort of stuff adds up. And so the price range can vary massively, just depending on various things, lots of different things. And it's a massive financial undertaking, and that was one of the things, when I first started this whole Seven Summits quest, was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to afford Everest. One day I'll put that to the back burner. This is part of why it's a real passive process. But after coming back from Manaslu a couple of years ago, and I kept in contact with a few people I'd met, and we all agreed that, yes, we all want to do Everest, let's start looking into it. So we started looking around and getting prices, and we're like, well, hey, are we going to be serious about this? Let's do it, let's commit. And so once we did that, it's, we found a company which wasn't at the upper end of the price range. It wasn't the lowest either. And we settled with Imagine. We were really happy with the service that they were offering. So we just made that commitment, and we're like, well, it's not going to get any cheaper, it's not going to get any easier, we're not going to get any younger. Let's just make it happen.
Got to commit.
Commit and make it happen. So
awesome. What's the rough price range costs?
It cost about...
Only if you're happy to obviously say. You don't have to say it, of course.
No, so it was in the ballpark of 80,000 Australian dollars. And, there are some companies which would cost almost double that. Just depending on the exact services that they offer. But, we were happy to shave off a few things, and so it sort of fit our, ethos with how we wanted to climb, but also our budget. And, keeping in mind, we all had our gear already, so we didn't need to buy a lot of the gear already. So like your boots, your climbing suit and everything, which, that can add up to a lot of money.
As well,
But we had all that. So, ballpark 80,000.
I think if it was... if I was heading over there, I wouldn't want to go like sort of the cheapest option if I'm going to Everest. It's like you leave a few tanks of oxygen home or something like that. It's like something you want to double check and make sure that you're all over. We're making sure we had our minimum requirements met. Yes. Plenty of oxygen tanks and enough food.
We're super happy with Imagine Nepal.
They were awesome.
Really good.
Awesome. So you've done 5 of the 7. What's next? What's the next one?
So the 2 I've got left to do is Denali in North America and Vinson in Antarctica. And I'm in the process now of deciding exactly which one's going to come first. So,
cool.
And
Denali is the one that can be as hard as Everest.
Yes.
Wow. I'm already excited for you.
It is exciting. definitely the time of the year, they've only got sort of short windows as to when you can climb them. So that's just what I'm trying to figure out now is which one's going to be next, and try to make it happen.
Beautiful. All right, we're just about done. What's one or two things you would say to someone who is either considering big goals like you've done, like achieving big things like yourself with like a hike or a climb or other pursuits in their life, or I guess people who, like we said before, like shy away from the fear or don't want to lean into it, or they sort of back off? Like, what's one or two things you would say to someone listening in who maybe someone from your, like maybe your own self from 20 years ago, maybe, like what's something you would say to them?
Yeah, well, as we said before, lean into the hard things. You get so much out of it. You become a different person and your mind expands. But one quote that I have sort of etched into the side of my ice axe is by Colin Wright. It says, "You get one life in which to do absolutely everything you'll ever do. Act accordingly." And so I think, you're not going to get a do-over in life. That's definitely something that as a paramedic, I have people end up in the ambulance all the time that say, "Oh, I wasn't expecting to end up here today." And you go, well, that's right. You never know what's around the corner.
No.
There's no guarantees that, next year will come or even next month will come. So if there's things that you want to do or that you think that you want to do, like start working on it. Don't leave it till retirement, or don't leave it until some other phase of your life, or think that time is around the corner. Because you just don't know. Like, you get one life in which to do absolutely everything you'll ever do. Act accordingly.
Act according to that. I love that. It's awesome. What's one of the more, as a paramedic out in rural Vic, so like we said in the introduction, like you sometimes have to travel, and take patients 200 kilometres to the nearest emergency centre or hospital. What's some of the craziest things you've seen out there on your journeys, or some of the most, or the hardest parts of that role? Because you've done some pretty big things.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think a paramedic in rural Vic, with some of the conditions you have to work against as well. Talking of conditions with like climbing, those conditions that you've told me about, behind the camera, are also pretty intense as well.
Yeah.
Like delivering babies, and it's like pretty full on from what I've heard.
The distances and the isolation is, it's completely different to working in a big city where you've got so much help and extra resources just around the corner. So being out in a community that's really isolated, and big distances from places, you just have to think about the job differently. It's a totally different job. There's a lot more community involvement. I work with this amazing team of ambulance community officers, and so they're volunteering their time to be on call, and if I get a job, we head out to the job together. So they can be on call for a period of time and not even get a job. But without those volunteers and that help, the service won't run. So they're so vital. And if I need backup, it's going to be those volunteers that is my first backup, really, because my next set of backup can be coming from over 100 kilometres away.
Yeah, wow.
So it really changes the nature of some of the work that you do when, things are so far apart. Especially compared to working in the big city, you really take that sort of support for granted.
Definitely,
when you've just got resources left, right and centre. But out in the country, and I think that translates to a lot of things in the country. I've noticed in the town, a lot of people wear multiple hats. So someone that's a volunteer here is also the president of so-and-so society, and they're also on this committee for that. And, the whole strength of the town is just woven in volunteer roles and people putting their hand up to do multiple different things, whereas in the city it's a lot more to yourself. There's not as much volunteerism and community engagement. It's really different. So as tough and isolated as it can be, there's so much more community strength in the little towns.
And it like takes a tribe to run a town.
Absolutely, it does.
Everyone wears a hat or multiple hats. And it takes a tribe to make it keep running, I guess. It sounds of it,
So I think, it's really different communities, but people get to know a lot more about perhaps each other, but then what's going on in the community, you know, whether it's been a good harvest season or not, you know, the different issues that are going on within the town. It's really takes a different sort of involvement, and that it's been really nice to see that, you know, having worked in the city for so many years, to go out there and just see how a small community runs and operates. It's I feel very fortunate to have had these experiences.
Definitely, and very, very like eye-opening, and like a change of pace and change of environment altogether.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely. Thinking laterally, a bit more pragmatically about how to get a job done, you know, when you don't have all the extra resources that you beck and call. Yeah, you
have to, Yeah. Awesome. I think some great takeaways from Ali's episode so far is just, one, you had lean into the fear. And then second one I took out of that was also like no one's coming to save you when you're laying on, you know, the side of Everest, and kind of made you realise that you've got to pick yourself up and keep going. And I think the third one just then again was similar to when you're out there, you're kind of on your own as well. So the community helps, but ultimately you're almost on your own as well in a way. If you've got to be self-sufficient and everyone helps each other, but ultimately it's like taking accountability and responsibility as well.
You've got to be part of the solution.
Always a part of the solution is probably a really good summary. Awesome. Well, what I was going to say, we'll go into your next project, but we probably won't because it's very new, the product. So Ali is working on something.
I am, yes.
As part of her climbs and mountaineering. So you were saying about the nutrition stuff. So maybe on episode 2 we'll go into more detail, but maybe if you want to mention it, you can. You don't have to, of course. It's very early days. But
it is very early days. But one of my next projects is developing my own food, my own. Well, it could be a meal for hikers, but also a meal for anyone that's, you know, an athlete that's paying attention to their macros and wants a really complete meal that they can take with them anywhere. That's something that, as someone who's an outdoor enthusiast and has the benefit of, you know, really paying attention to macros and understanding what I want in a meal for optimal fueling, that's what I want when I go out hiking. And just when I look around at some of the meals on offer, it just hasn't been hitting them. And so I want to create the thing that I've been longing for. And and to fill that gap that you've experienced yourself. So awesome. Stay tuned. It's very exciting. It's in its infancy at the moment, but I'm really excited about launching this. I'm sure it'll do great because you've been there firsthand and you know what it needs. So you've experienced it firsthand and you know what that gap is in that market. So I think the product you've told me about would be fantastic for adventurists and mountaineers and people who just go outside really. Go hiking and camping and out in the bush. But that's Ali's next project, which I'm keen to see, and maybe episode 2 we'll bring it out and talk about even more. Cool. That's exciting.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on. It's been great to have you, and the stories have been awesome. So I appreciate you coming out. Pleasure. And hopefully the audience love that from Ali. But overall, it's been great to have you on, and the stories are cool. And overall, appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you so much. It's been fun.